Hopefully you have prepared yourself for your first group meeting so that you're ready to get off on the right foot. But when you're in a group, there is more than just one foot. What can you do that can improve the chances that the entire group gets off on the right feet? Let's cover some common complaints about group work, the importance of establishing superordinate goals for the group, and then offer some ideas for handling your first meeting to hopefully reduce the complaints about your task-oriented group. Understanding the most common problems that come up during group work may help reduce the likelihood of them occurring in your group. From my experience, the most commonly voiced complaint is that some group members have a lack of commitment to the group. They are slacking, not pulling their weight, or are what some scholars call social loafers, people who want to enjoy the social dimension in the group but don't put in the necessary work to get the job done. A related problem is that not everyone does or is willing to produce work that meets your definition of high quality. It is frustrating to be in a group that has norms of mediocrity, where good enough is just good enough. Oftentimes, group members don't seem to have the same understanding of responsibility, and all of these combined may result in just one or two people doing all of the work, or someone might just take over the work and not allow others to contribute. Finally, as groups are made up of all kinds of people and personalities, you may experience tension related to personality clashes. If some of these problems are addressed early in the group's formation, your group might work more effectively. And for others, it might be helpful to remember that many times the groups are of short duration. You may have to put up with a less than ideal situation in the short term, knowing that it will likely pay off in the long term. That brings us to the concept of superordinate goals. A superordinate goal is a goal that is compelling enough to result in group members overlooking personal differences to accomplish something that they can't do by themselves. That means that all acknowledge that the group goal is more important than each person's individual goal, that the goal is superior to or is of higher order than each individual goal. Yes, that means that you often have to put the group needs ahead of your own needs. As a Swahili proverb suggests, a boat doesn't go forward if each one is rowing their own way. Basketball great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar applied this proverb to team sports when he said that great players are willing to give up their own personal achievement for the achievement of the group. It enhances everybody. If your group commits to a superordinate goal, group members can often set aside differences and sacrifice for the group, understanding the importance of achieving that group goal. Now let's talk about what you can do at your first group meetings that can set the groundwork for future meetings. It may help to understand the two dimensions that occur in groups. The task dimension relates to doing the work, performing the necessary tasks. When a group focuses on the task dimension, productivity results. But, as you may have heard, all work and no play make Jack a dull boy. The social dimension involves the relationships that form between the group members and the impact of those relationships on the group. When a group focuses on the social dimension so that they enjoy each other's company, cohesiveness results. Task-oriented groups must be able to manage a balance between the two dimensions. Too much emphasis on the social dimension means that the group might have a lot of fun together, but get nothing done. On the other hand, a group that focuses exclusively on the task dimension might lose its members because the experience is not enjoyable. Oftentimes, in groups that are productive, members feel good about working together, meaning the group becomes cohesive. And conversely, if the group members enjoy each other and the group, they may want to work together, so the group tends to be productive, which is a win-win for everyone. Understand that you and your group will likely experience what is called primary tension, which is the tension that results from uncertainty with the group project and with the group in general. You often don't know many, if any, of your fellow group members. You are likely experiencing some ambiguity about the group project and are not sure about exactly how the group will operate. You're probably tense. Paying attention to this primary tension will help address the social dimension of your group. One way that you can do this is to get to know each other. Introduce each other and share contact information. In a business meeting, you'll likely trade business cards, but you can do something similar in other types of meetings. You might even want to have all your contact information prepared so that you can just hand it out to your fellow group members. And in the process, people can address their preference in contact methods, including any limitations such as, I only check my email during business hours, or I prefer text over email. Engage in small talk for a few minutes. Have everyone mention what they think they can contribute to the group, or offer a little-known fact to break the ice. You should be willing to be the one to get the ball rolling. Now, primary tension also surrounds the uncertainty as to how the group will operate, so now might be a good time to discuss group expectations, or norms. Think of norms as what is normal for this group. This will likely feel awkward at this point, but it will be much more awkward later on if someone doesn't seem to be performing to the group's unstated expectations. Oftentimes, the person others are pointing to as slacking may not be aware that the group expected something different. We assume everyone knows what is expected because we assume everyone thinks like we do. Bad assumption. Before you adjourn your first meeting, you should schedule your next meeting. Oftentimes, you'll need to meet out of class or in a business environment outside of your workplace. If you're at school, try to arrange meetings on campus or in other public places that are well lit and accessible to all. It is also helpful to, up front, identify the times that you can meet as a group and make a regular meeting time. This might be difficult, as everyone is likely to be busy, but you can always find some time to meet as a group, even if it is not convenient. One of my colleagues called it a WOO, or your window of opportunity. If the only time you can meet as a group is 2 o'clock in the morning at a local 24-hour coffee shop, you will do all you can to make that meeting short, or, if you're really productive, not even necessary. You may also be able to use technology, Skype, conference calls, online chats. Figure this out early. And remember, it's much easier to cancel a regularly scheduled meeting if it's not necessary than it is to schedule a new meeting. Back to defining group expectations. What does the group expect of its members and how the group works? Group expectations should be both specific and realistic. For example, what does acceptable participation really mean? Or regular meeting attendance? And when does a valid reason become just another excuse? Remember that inevitably some group members will do more than their fair share of the work, and you may be inclined to let them slide on a deadline. So when defining your group expectations, be realistic so that they can be fairly applied to everyone. Many group conflicts arise because an underperforming member who is called out on a particular behavior can point to exceptions being made for that same behavior by another group member. Further, all need to agree to adhere to the stated expectations. In many of my classes, I require the group to develop a group contract. Yes, it's formal, and yes, it can be a pain, but with a contract, you're more able to hold members accountable. Supervisors, managers, professors all differ in how they handle a group's complaint of underperforming members. Sometimes a troublesome member can be removed from a group, other times a supervisor will intervene, and still other times the group has no recourse. They have to work together through the conflict themselves. They have to work through the conflict themselves. Whatever the case, a clearly articulated and documented list of expectations will help. Therefore, the group should establish in advance how they will address a violation of the group's stated expectations. Be professional, keep the discussion non-judgmental, respectful, and connect the behavior to the agreed-upon superordinate goal, the agreed-upon group expectations, and the consequences should that behavior continue. It would be helpful if the group had previously If you haven't already agreed upon consequences in advance, you may need to brainstorm with the violator and the group as a whole to determine what the appropriate consequences would be. Consider the cow approach. The first time a violation occurs, take some time in the group meeting to non-judgmentally clarify the group's expectations with the entire group. Consider this a first soft warning, and get the group to agree to appropriate consequences if the behavior happens again. What happened might have been an isolated occurrence. Remember that while people can learn from their mistakes, they can't if they aren't aware that they actually made a mistake. A second violation? It's time for an oral discussion, which is a much more pointed warning to the violator, again appealing to the superordinate goal and agreed upon expectations and consequences. Document this in your group minutes. And a third violation should result in a written warning, very specific, detailing the behavior as well as the consequences. If a fourth violation occurs, it's time to implement those consequences. Yes, this gives someone a lot of leeway, but it's much more defensible if those consequences need to be implemented. There are other suggestions you can consider to make your group experience more productive and enjoyable. One is to, before you adjourn your first meeting, schedule some sort of task for everyone to perform that is due quickly, perhaps in advance of the next scheduled meeting or the next time you see them. It doesn't have to be difficult, maybe just even emailing some ideas for the group project, but it might identify potential problems early. Technological concerns can be pinpointed and hopefully resolved before they become an issue later in the group. Everyone should also have the chance to show that they're responsible, they can complete a task on time, or that they're not. As sports writer broadcaster Amber Harding notes, contrary to popular belief, there most certainly is an I in team. It is the same I that appears 3 times in responsibility. The group might benefit if someone, perhaps you, suggested creating and using an agenda for your meetings. An agenda is a plan for the meeting. This may make the meeting seem more formal, but an agenda can also be very brief and informal. Identify the logistics: when, both starting and ending time, where, who should be there, as well as what the members should do to be prepared. Should they bring a draft, read documents, what items are scheduled to be discussed, and expected next steps. You might be surprised at how much more productive your meetings are if you use and follow an agenda. Now, before we get to the next suggestion, let's clarify the difference between a leader and leadership. A leader is a position, an individual, which can be formally or informally elected to lead the group. Leadership, however, is a series of communicative behaviors, both verbal and nonverbal, that facilitates a group in achieving the group's needs and goals. This means that every group member can be involved in leadership. They are responsible for what happens in the group and should help the group achieve its goals. And remember that employers are searching for employees who demonstrate leadership skills, and your group experience can help develop those skills. With this in mind, there is a benefit to rotating key task roles amongst all group members. An example is the meeting facilitator or the meeting leader role, providing each group member the opportunity and experience of creating an agenda and running a meeting, both extremely valuable skills. Another key task is the recorder, who will take the meeting notes or minutes. Even if it's just taking the agenda and adding to it and then emailing it out as a typed copy or picture, this is an important task because you need to keep a record of what transpired during your meeting. Good records will save a tremendous amount of time if you can refer back to a document to clarify who attended a meeting, what decisions were made, and what was left to be accomplished. Get into the habit of summarizing what members committed to do at the end of the meeting and put that in the notes or meeting minutes, including when they said they would get it done. To aid in developing cohesiveness, the group may want to formally develop a group identity. A simple way is to come up with a group name. In many communication classes, mine included, creating a group name is required. A group name not only gives you a shortcut way to refer to your group, but it helps members feel included. A communication plan can help with questions like, who do I contact if I'm going to be late or have a question? Where can I find the meeting minutes or the work in progress? Technology can help here as many groups use Dropbox, Google Docs, Facebook, or something similar. You may be able to clarify with your supervisor or instructor what to do with an underperforming member. In a work environment, slackers or social loafers are not likely to be around for long. They likely behave the same in other work situations, and employers have the ability to fire or reassign employees. Unfortunately, that may not be possible in other types of groups. Processing time. What is your major complaint about working in groups? And what can the group do then in its first meeting to minimize the likelihood of your major complaint occurring? Can you think of other suggestions to help the group function more effectively? Hopefully these tips and concepts will help you and your group not only get off on the right feet, but help you stay on them as well.